today's video I'm going to be doing the second video for my tarot card reading. I'm just kind of going to go for it, and I hope you enjoy it. So I have the deck here in my hand right now, and basically what I did last time is I just opened the deck and I just chose whatever card kind of felt like it kind of stuck to me. And I remember which card it was. The card was the Sun, which is somewhere here. If I get that card again, I'm going to skip and choose another card. But the chances of me getting that card is pretty slim. So I'm just going to choose a card at random. And yeah, I'll just see what comes up as a result of it. I'm just going to clean my glasses because it's all like... yeah, my glasses are all muddled. They're like gross. Okay. I've started wearing my glasses again because apparently I don't look like myself when I don't wear them, but that's fine I guess. But I don't know why. I've just decided that I would start wearing them more in my videos. The reason why I didn't wear them at the start was because I was getting a flare, and so I don't know, I just thought it would be better to not do it, blah blah blah. But I think I'm more chill with making the videos now, so I'm like less concerned about the specifics of the quality in terms of the production value, but I'm more willing to kind of be focusing on the openness aspect rather than the production value, although I guess being concerned about the value of production is important too. But I don't think there's that much flair now, or maybe there is. But yeah, anyway, I guess I can just reflect on that, or just ask some people. I'll ask you if you're watching it. Is it annoying that you can see a flare on my eyes? If it is, then let me know, and I won't do it so much. But yeah, anyway, the idea here is I'm just going to pick a card, and yeah, we'll just see how it goes. So, gonna get in touch with my intuitive process. So with these, what I generally think is that I kind of trust whatever it is that I'm feeling with regard to picking the card, and I kind of just go on my intuitive process and I let my intuition guide me in terms of what it is that I'm going to pick. So already I'm kind of getting in touch with that aspect of myself, and that is a very subtle aspect. So I'm just gonna kind of feel it, and then I'm just gonna go for it. And in a way, allowing yourself to kind of be guided by this is quite a liberating feeling and quite a freeing feeling too, because you have to surrender some element of control. You know, you have to just be, and then when you just are, you're able to kind of pick out whatever it is that you need to pick out, and then it kind of just emerges. So I'm just kind of feeling the deck at the moment, and yeah, something's, I'm kind of feeling drawn towards a particular card now. So it's just like I feel very open, and then I kind of feel that my energy kind of goes more rooted, and I kind of narrow it from a specific openness feeling into a more, or rather an openness feeling into something which kind of becomes concrete, and into a choice, and then I end up kind of picking the card as a result from that. So I've picked this card now, and let's see what emerges. Oh, great. This is the card which I picked, which is the front of the tarot deck. I don't know if I should not stick to it, pick another card. I think I'm going to pick another card. Not much you can read from that. A part of me was like, maybe there's something symbolic here which you can riff off, but I'm not going to do that. So, another card coming. So just using the same process, just being very open and letting the thing solidify, whatever it is, and seeing how it goes. Okay, so I think I have a card. I want to pick this one. This one. Okay. Ah, interesting. Okay, so the card which I have is the Magician. And that's really interesting. So this is what it looks like, if you notice here. I don't know if you can catch it. So this is what the card is. And yeah, it's really intriguing. I actually haven't seen this card. I had an earlier deck and I saw the Magician in that, and that was like very interesting imagery. In this, the Magician actually looks quite different. He looks very empowered. I mean, he has the infinity symbol above his head, and to me that essentially represents union or kind of integration between an aspect of yourself which is present and the aspect of yourself which is in the shadow, because I was listening to this podcast with Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson in which they were talking about the shadow. And I've heard this again emerge, and I've kind of reflected on this idea of the shadow. And the shadow is aspects of ourselves which haven't really been given attention to, but they do exist. But they're aspects of ourselves which we don't find entirely comfortable, you know? And so when I see the infinity symbol, to me it means that there's an integration of the shadow, the aspect of ourselves, that which we want to avoid, basically, that which we look towards. And if you think about your own life, you can probably imagine, or certain things will come to mind where you look at certain people or you look at certain traits within yourself or in other people, and you want to avoid that. You never want to become that. And there's an aspect of you which is like, I will never become this particular thing. And there's this kind of forcefulness there, which is kind of a kind of reluctance to become that particular type of person. So what you have there is, in the infinity symbol, the first symbol is that of you which you are and that which you aspire towards. And then the other aspect of yourself is that which you dislike, that which you avoid, that which you don't want to take into consideration because you don't want to give it any airtime in yourself, and predominantly in yourself, but also when it comes to approaching and seeing other people, you don't want to give that aspect any airtime. So there's an element of reluctance which comes as a result of that. So often there is a pull towards that which we wish and an avoidance towards that which we don't like. And I think that which we don't like, beyond the very basics, which is you don't want to, harm yourself in a really, there are like some obvious things in our life which we should avoid and go towards. But when it comes about like values and symbolism, there are certain aspects which we just do not want to entertain. And those are aspects of our own shadow which we don't want to entertain. And I think to me the infinity symbol, which is above the magician's head, as you notice it here, basically represents an integration between our shadow self and our self, which is that which we aspire to, that which we are already good at, that which we already want to become closer to, that which will hold to us and right to us and good to us. So the infinity symbol is a kind of integration of those two selves, And so from my perspective, I kind of see, if you look lower down on the card, you kind of see the magician, and his face is incredibly kind but poised as well. There's an element of serenity there, and there's an element of pride and calm there. And he's holding this candle above his head. I don't know if it's a candle, it looks like a candle, but it looks like a two-way candle, so maybe some kind of staff or stick. I don't know, the imagery of these cards isn't as clear. And they're both, one is pointing upwards and the other one is pointing downwards, which again to me represents very much the integration of the higher self and the shadow self, And the higher self again is that self which we aspire to, and the shadow self is the self which we never want to do anything to do with. In ourselves especially, and then but often we're not aware of that, so we see that manifest in other people, and the response which we have is that of disgust, of avoidance. I never want to be like that, and that's the shadow self. So there's an integration there again. There's a kind of thing, stick is pointing upwards and it's also pointing downwards, so that's what's emerging here. So if you notice, this is what the stick is here, if you notice that. So to me that is again quite similar to the symbol of infinity above the magician's head. And then you have all the different, I would say, I don't know if you call it suits, I don't know what you call them, but what you have in front of the magician is a table on which there's a sword, there's a cup, there is the pentacle, and then there's the, I don't know what the wand thing is called. I think it's wand, but I don't know what it is. I should probably know that, but oh well. Well, maybe we can check actually what it is, because I have an instruction booklet in which you have that. So you have the main cards, of course. Yeah, so it is wands. So probably should know this, but yeah. So you have the 4 suits. If they're called suits, there may be something else. So you have the pentacles, the cups, the sword, and the wands, which basically means that, to me, these kind of things represent almost the 4 elements. They're these 4 elemental forces or energies. I don't know anything about these tarot cards, by the way. I'm just riffing on what I think they mean. So like, I could be completely wrong here. I'm just going on what I think it represents, because I think, to me, this is more a case of extracting meaning from the card and kind of having a dialogue with my own self and being reflective, rather than kind of being like, this is definitely what it means. To me, this is kind of an open canvas upon which aspects of my subconscious or conscious mind can be kind of printed, and then I can kind of extract that, and the card is merely acting as a prompt, you know? So I don't know, I could be completely wrong in this, but essentially you have the 4 suits. And it's really deeply meaningful, because I think the 4 suits are the 4 elements, and it kind of means to me that once the higher self and the shadow self has been integrated, the 4 elements, which are the 4 core energies which you may have within yourself, and to me the energies would represent different emotional faculties or different abilities, because I think each suit kind of represents a specific aspect of self which can be really used to function well in the world, you know. I'm not going to go into what each suit particularly represents, because I think that might be for another video or something like that. But so yeah, you have the 4 modalities and the 4 suits, which basically just represent different modalities of self which may be allowed to surface. And so my point here was basically that, depending on different people, and it was basically reminding me of learning about the Myers-Briggs personality type, because I think there's an element of like Jungian types or something like that within that. I don't know it that well, but basically you have 2 modalities, which are your primary and secondary modalities, but you also have like a tertiary modality and then your least favored modality. And so the idea there was that as people age, with time, what happens is that your primary and secondary modalities are always being used, but in order to balance them more, you begin to make use of your tertiary and your least, which is your 4th modality. I don't know what the technical term is for 4th, I'm just saying 4th. Basically, is that that aspect of yourself, your tertiary modality and your least used modality, is also given some room and also given some space to express itself, and then that basically allows it to surface within your general mode of being. So I think I would call those modalities of self your kind of least used modalities of self, basically. And so essentially what you'd have is that some people will have certain modalities which they favor. So the example which I was giving when I was just recording this earlier was that, for me, thinking about ideas and seeing a potential flaw in a structural system, whether it's kind of academic or if it's more structural in terms of how particular procedures are done, is really easy. I quite like doing that, and I find it really engaging. And generally I can come up with like a number of ideas which could then improve that particular procedural system, because I think abstractly. But when it comes to actually trying to operationalize that, or turn into something concrete in terms of communicating with people, convincing them, trying to come up with a way where everyone is on board and is able to actually go ahead and do that, I suck at that. I suck at like operationalizing things in my life, although I'm trying to work at that, and I suck at operationalizing things in general, because it can be quite hard for me to do that, because that's my shadow self. Whereas for another person, operationalizing things is actually quite easy and simple, and they can actually get to grips with it. But actually seeing a potential flaw in why they're doing what they're doing, and if there's any problem with what they're doing, and if there's anything which could be done to improve what they're doing, is actually harder, because that's their shadow aspect, you know. It's harder for them to be reflecting on that, whereas I reflect maybe too much on that, and as a result don't end up actually doing enough. And that's just to give one example of how different modalities of self can be for one person, their higher self, which is they aspire towards that and they value that, and for another person, that same thing could be their shadow self, you know. But to me, what this represents is, this particular card is that when you integrate your shadow self, when you integrate those modalities in you, which you're like, I'm not going to be that, I don't want to be that, because there's an element of disgust which you have associated with it, then I think there's an element of your shadow or some aspect of yourself, usually which you don't want to accept in yourself, which you don't want to examine in your own self, but you don't usually see that. We usually see that as kind of projected onto other people. So we see certain people in our life and we're like, I'm not going to be like that because that sucks. I do not want to be like that. And there's an element of disgust or resistance associated or affiliated with it. But that's merely indicative that that to you represents a shadow self, which is in your own self, and you don't want to maybe necessarily examine that because you think it's difficult or you don't like it and it doesn't come naturally to you. There may be some trauma affiliated with it which has led you to feel that you don't want to do that particular thing. But in either case, that's an aspect of your shadow self, and I think that needs to be integrated with your higher self modalities, whatever they are which you value, or your higher principles, so that you can function better and be a more balanced human being, essentially. So yeah, this is a really interesting card, and this is what it represents to me. I think it's an aspect of balancing your shadow self, or harnessing the modalities which exist in your shadow self. And how do you find that out? You find that out by basically examining people in your life where you feel like, ugh, I don't want to be like that. There's an element of disgust and repulsion there. That's your shadow self. Examine what those traits are, and then try to see if you can begin to integrate those, whether it's aggressiveness, or it could be something even more abstract, such as like being operational or operationalizing things and doing things in a structured way. Whatever those things are, try to examine why it is that, first highlight that you're disgusted by them, and then examine if you could maybe start using some aspects of that in your own being so that you can become more integrated with your shadow self. And your higher self, obviously, because I haven't really mentioned that, is basically whatever it is when you look at someone, you look at, or a group of people, and you look at that and you aspire towards that. You see that and you feel uplifted, and you feel that it energizes you, and you're like, this is right. You feel completely holistic, and you feel in a way complete. You think that things make sense, they lock into place, they feel right, and you kind of feel drawn into it. And that is the higher self. And that's if you feel drawn towards something in that way, then that means that's your thing. You have to go for that, and you have to try to manifest that in your life in some way. But it's also about integrating the shadow self with alongside that, and then you'll be this kind of magician who can kind of bank on the thing which you're used for and which you love doing, but you've integrated and thought about your shadow aspects as well. And then what would happen is that when obstacles come in your way, whether it's in terms of a situation or a person, you'd be able to deal with that in a more concrete manner. You'd have a larger toolkit at your kind of to play with, and then you'll be able to actually work with it a lot better, you know. So I guess there's an element of tip in this tarot card reading as well, which is integrate your shadow self with your higher self. So I hope you found this video useful, and I will see you guys next time.